somebody that has 4 kilos of coke, presuming you're trying to sell that shit. Narcotics, right? Like, that's not a personal use. Narcotics.
Basically, you're a moral prostitute. The war on drugs has been around for 45 years. We spent billions of dollars, and substance use has continued to increase. I think that the drug dealer, as you know, Scarface or you know, American Gangster, I think that image is make believe. I believe an 8-ball of crack is presumptive intent. So 3.5 grams. That's not very much.
No, that's not.
You could smoke that in a day.
Yeah, you could. We caught a guy on the highway with $28,000 in his dashboard.
What do you think of civil asset forfeiture? Do you know how the money is distributed then? Is it split between the feds and the seizing agency?
Yes.
Do you think that there aren't cops who are criminals as well?
Oh, undoubtedly. Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. On the paperwork, it says they seized 500,000. Just imagine what could have been there. Like, come on, man.
When I got raided, none of my cash ended up on the evidence list.
Okay, so now your wordage is kind of triggering to me. So.
Go with the flow.
When you were working narcotics, what is the most harmful aspect of drugs?
I think it is the actual acquisition of trying to get said drug that somebody is addicted to. They go out their way.
Because they have to go to a criminal, because it necessarily means going to a criminal, or
they do whatever they can to get the funds or the means to get said drug.
Wouldn't that be alleviated to a great extent if drugs were legalized, all of them across the board, like alcohol?
No, because you still have to have the means to get the said drug.
Well, sure.
What they do to get that drug is what I'm talking about. Even if it was legalized, you will still have people breaking the law to try to get the means to get that drug, right?
And I think that, yeah. Why is that different from any other addiction? Gambling, alcohol, tobacco,
I think the main thing is because how the drug addicts you is different from alcohol or tobacco, right? So the recovery or the what do they call it? My mind just went blank. The withdrawals of certain drugs are more than others, right? So when somebody is having those withdrawals, they do what they can or anything they can do to get out of those withdrawals, so they won't have those withdrawals again.
Agree. Alcohol and benzodiazepines are the only two withdrawals that can kill you. Alcohol is the worst if you're an alcoholic.
Right, but we're not talking about death. We're talking about what the withdrawals are, right?
Okay.
So at the end of the day, go ahead.
I guess I don't understand what withdrawals are bad enough to justify the whole thing being illegal. Because the way I look at it is from an economic standpoint. I've got an economic background, and drugs are unique in the economy in that there's so much profit margin in them because of the illegality that I view it as a supply side economic. It's the supply side drives the quantity, not the demand. And I think that if we look at our culture, Breaking Bad, music, all of it glamorizes drugs because there's this massive artificial profit margin. If it weren't for that huge profit,
you lost me. If there wasn't a demand, because I don't have an economic background, if there wasn't a demand, how could there be a supply?
Well, I think there is a demand, but I think the demand is manufactured because it's so profitable.
I think so. Okay. So my argument with that is, if nobody ever used drugs, there would not be a demand for it, right?
Let me explain it this way. If there wasn't so much profit baked into an illegal product, it would be really hard to try to convince somebody to smoke Drano out of a light bulb, for instance. Some of these drug habits are not appealing things, but since there is so much profit margin in it, if you can get somebody addicted, now you've got a whole bunch of people who want to capitalize on that. So we need to make more addicts. I think.
No
I
doubt.
think.
I really feel like because of the money, people want to make more addicts. Yes, I totally agree with that. But if there wasn't any addict, if you couldn't get addicted to Drano, nobody would be making Drano.
That's true, but we know that that's not how the war on drugs works. In the 4 decades, we've spent billions of dollars and massively increased the number of people locked up, and drug use has only increased. And we saw the same issue during prohibition of alcohol.
But I don't think that comes from the war on drugs.
Well, the war on drugs is not stopping the problem that it was created to solve.
It's not going to stop it because there's so much profit in it. You wouldn't stop it. Right, so there's always going to be somebody that's going to want to get the profit from the drugs. So that's what I say. The war on drugs, there is no war on drugs. There's an enforcement on drugs, but there's no war on drugs when it comes down to it, because you're never going to be able to stop anybody trying to make that profit off of said drug.
So, if our approach is if our approach to because the drug laws are all created to reduce the harm of drug addiction, right? Would you agree with that?
Is it? No.
What's the point of them then? Or how are they justified?
There are a bunch of laws that aren't justified.
So okay.
There are so many laws that aren't justified. One being the seatbelt law. The only reason seatbelt law is justified is because of insurance prices. Same thing when it comes to speed limits. It's justified to say that it keeps people safer, but at the end of the day, insurance companies did not want to keep on paying so much and so much loss because of the speeds and the seatbelts. That's why the laws are there. Right?
When you said that you don't want to end the war on drugs, I assume that's because you saw what they did. I assume that your approach is one that is harm reduction, right? Why do you think the war on drugs is a good thing?
I don't think the quote unquote war on drugs is a good thing. I think the enforcement of drugs is a good thing. But to say it's a war on drugs, because it does stop certain crimes from happening. In a sense, it does stop certain crimes from getting further and happening. So if there were no drug wars, if there were no drug territories, we wouldn't have these wars between gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the gang wars come out of the drug territories, right? So there would be a lot of things that would not be happening based on the sale of drugs.
But if we legalize drugs, we wouldn't have those gang wars at all. Just like at the end of the prohibition, the mobs, the bootlegging stopped, and all the violence surrounding that stopped. The black market creates.
No, bootlegging never stopped. It's still going on to this day.
Well, sure, because alcohol is just fermented juice. So, but to a much smaller extent, there's not massive industries around it with gangsters and people running. There's not that industry.
Right.
There was much less after prohibition ended. The amount of violent crime, plummeted. The amount of officers killed in the line of duty plummeted. And I don't see any reason why those good results would not be the same for the war on drugs. I'll let you respond. Then J Hub, jump in. I heard you.
I don't. You know what? I don't disagree with you totally when you say that. But I just see narcotics as a worse drug than alcohol.
I think I agree. Like to Diesel's original point, like different drugs and stuff have different effects. So, like I grew up in a dry county, right? Nobody even could drink beer in the county. They originally I mean, eventually they elected to have beer legal in the county, and you could see the downturn on crime and the total effects of the community. And I've
I mean,
also
just like the
seen,
legal. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, JF. Go ahead.
I've, no, you good. I've also seen counties that have a meth problem, right, and worked in these places, and you can just see it everywhere,
Hmm.
and it's obvious, the effects of these drugs that they have on the community. It's a completely different society than places that don't have that. So for a society to say that we don't want that and we're going to enforce it hard and we don't want these people in our community, that's a positive thing. And it goes back to what I was saying about jurisdiction earlier. If people get together and say we don't want this in our community, you have to respect that. And if you still want to do that, you need to go somewhere else because it's a reason for that. If the majority of people in that area don't want you to drink alcohol, or don't want to have a big meth problem in their city, and they enforce it hard, it's a reason for that. They're not just saying it just because, oh, we don't want you to have your freedoms or whatever. It's a reason for it.
All right. Um, you think that the drugs, which drug do you know which drug effects you think are worse than alcohol that justify the laws? Because I would say that having seen, I would obviously was on the other side of drug laws, and I've seen a lot of people impacted by it. In my opinion, is that the most harmful effect, unless you overdose and die, right? But for that, you basically have to be a needle user. But on the whole, I would say the most harmful effect of drugs and addiction is the law enforcement. And it doesn't make sense to me that we would attempt to resolve a problem by increasing the harm, especially since we've tried it before and it has not reduced. It's a practical
I,
approach to addiction, which is an impractical behavior.
I think I know we had this conversation before. It might sound totalitarian, but I think alcohol is probably the worst. I would agree with you on that.
Alcohol is the worst.
Yeah, alcohol probably is the worst, and it's legal in a lot of places. And you can see the effects. Like if you stay somewhere that doesn't sell alcohol, and you stay in an area that does, it's a big difference. Like I watched people when I was growing up. I didn't see people be at the gas station begging for coins to get a beer. Now you see that type of thing. Now that they sell alcohol there,
Alcohol is
but
the worst one. I mean, when I was in
I would
rehab,
agree with
yeah, it's the worst one as far as detoxes go for the individual, and it's the worst one as far as society goes because there's nothing else that is so inebriating and increases your aggression and lowers your inhibition. That
Uh,
combination,
um, I don't want to disagree with you, Flow State,
mhm.
but
I want you
I've
to disagree with
seen
me if you disagree with me.
no, but I see, but so the thing is that I don't disagree with you because I've seen what alcohol can do, but I've
Mhm.
also seen what meth can do, heroin can do, all these other drugs that have an effect on a person's, um, like literally turning them into a zombie. I want to agree with you, but what I've seen, the potential that heroin can have on somebody is is way more devastating on the body and that person than alcohol is. And the thing about it is, the crazy thing about it is, you have to drink so much, you have to ingest so much more alcohol than you would heroin or meth
No,
to be at that.
I disagree because you build up a tolerance to everything.
Yeah, but you're talking about less than grams of heroin, and you're talking about bottles and bottles of alcohol. I mean, it's
Well, the
even with a high tolerance. Go ahead.
even with a high tolerance. Okay, I see your point. Like how little tiny bit of fent it takes, but
Right.
the ingestion method is different. If you shoot up alcohol, It doesn't take
Yeah,
much.
but see, then you're creating. That's not a that's not a thing though, right?
It's not a thing. That's correct.
So yeah, you're right. If somebody was to start needling alcohol, yeah, but that's not a thing.
Hmm.
So
And I bet
if
if alcohol were illegal, though, it would become a thing because the prohibition spurs innovation. That's why we've got ever increasing super drugs.
right, so and it goes back to my point, right? The reason why, one of the reasons why selling heroin on the streets is different from selling heroin in a pharmacy is because the way you ingest it, right? They've tried to make over the counter heroin harder to ingest with a needle than it is through the mouth, right? Through digesting it, right?
You're talking about
So
OxyContin and stuff.
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, the pills, which is saying it's opiate. It's an opiate, just like heroin is, right? So, but when you buy it on the streets, you can just put it in a needle and put it straight into your veins, which drastically changes the effects.
It does.
So I think part of the reason why it is like that is because of the way you ingest it compared to the way, somebody gets it from a doctor to on the streets.
I think that's a flimsy reason, but I hear you.
Why is that a flimsy reason?
Because is shooting up different than other methods? Yes, I would say absolutely it is. And I've said this before, because people who haven't done drugs or been around drugs tend to assume that, or a lot of them tend to assume that drugs are drugs. And I like to make it clear that no, shooting up meth and smoking meth is an entirely different thing. Needles are a way different ball game.
Oh yeah.
But that's not justification for making the substance. Then why wouldn't you just make needles illegal? Our approach to the drug issue is ineffective. Full stop.
So what would be a better approach?
I think 100%. I think that if we legalized all drugs and treat them all like alcohol, you would have a huge reduction in violent crime and organized crime. Drugs are not expensive to produce, except that there's such a big enforcement mechanism against it. But we're talking about Drano, lithium strips, plants that are literally called weed that grows everywhere. None of these inputs are expensive in and of their own right. You suck the profit out of it, treat it like everything else. You'd have, and I think that would I think the solution to drugs is stop fighting them so much. If I did,
I gotta go there, Flo. I don't want junkies in my community.
you have, I mean, that's not changing though.
Let's say, what do you mean it's not changing?
I mean, the war on drugs has been around for 45 years. We spent billions of dollars, and substance use has continued to increase. That problem is not getting fixed with this current approach.
But I don't think that making it available for people to take it is going to fix it either. I think that's what the only thing that's going to do is
It's definitely
just
not.
make it. So prime example is Seattle. You have
No.
people doing.
It's a
What?
bad example because they basically legalized crime on the West Coast.
No doubt. But that's my point. Any legalization of crime that is currently crime now just makes it okay for people to do it out in the open. Right now, we have so many people hiding it because it's illegal. So there is a false narrative that people gather that it's working when it's really not. And I get what you're saying. Totally get what you're saying. Hold on one second.
Mm.
No, Flo, I can agree that you can say that maybe the enforcement may not be effective, but at the same time, you just saying, hey, everybody can do it now. That's still not going to solve the problem. And I think there are jurisdictions and places that you can go where these laws are enforced and they don't have these problems.
Now the
You know,
problem,
just
I don't think so. I've never lived a
so
place where they don't have a drug problem. Have you?
I I haven't lived in them, but I've been in several places where they don't have a drug problem. a hard drug problem.
Diesel, do you know of any place that doesn't have a hard drug problem?
I think that goes back to my point. You don't see it because it's hidden. I think everywhere has a drug problem. It's just the fact of the enforcement is making people hide it more than it being out in the open, right? So regardless of the fact of if it's working or not, to a sense it's working because you have people that still think there are areas with no drug problem.
The Glock 19 is the best pistol ever made. Do you agree?
No. No. The 1911 is the best platform you can ever get.
Your age is showing. 5.7 is the best round.
No. No, the 357.
Tell me it's a 30-06.
357 SIG is the best round ever made.
Really?
Yes. That mother freaker will punch the hell out of you, bro. If you look at the ballistic.
I used to have a Smith & Wesson, or no, I'm sorry. It was a Sig Sauer P226. Anyways, it had the interchangeable barrels, 40 cal and also 357.
Yep.
And I never used the 357 Sig barrel for anything.
Best round. Most is very expensive. That's why a lot of people don't use it. Best round, hands down, when it comes to penetration and stoppability.
Better than 10.
But see, so the thing about it is 10 might have better stoppability, but you're talking about similar. You're talking about similar numbers when it comes to penetration, FPS, foot per second, and stuff like that. But a smaller round. Mm-hmm. The 10 millimeter is so big, right? So it adds more weight. 357 is a lot smaller with less weight, but same numbers, almost identical numbers to a 10 millimeter.
All right. Damn, are they still as they're few and far in between the 357 SIGs, aren't they? It's not a common cartridge. I haven't owned guns in quite a while, but it's not a common cartridge.
Yeah, it's not a common cartridge, and if you can get some when it comes to like a self-protection round or something like that, not just a range round, something you're going to use to protect yourself, you're talking about maybe $50 a box, almost $1 a round.
Have you ever shot the what's it called? Shit. Palmetto State Armory is now making their own sort of Glock clone. Have you tried those?
The dagger?
Yes.
Yes, I got 6 of them.
You got 6 daggers.
Bro, if you knew my gun collection, you'll be like, what the freak? I've got over 350 guns.
Damn. I thought I was doing good.
Right. The last I counted was over 350 guns. So, like I said, my channel, I talk about guns a lot. I'm a very big 2A advocate, but I also know that there are certain laws that you have to follow to be 2A, right? So, regardless of the fact if I agree with them or not, they are still the laws.
Right. Okay, I want to come back to that, but first, do you own any Glocks?
I do.
Well, yeah, obviously. Is there a reason to pay more for a Glock than a dagger?
So you go into the reliability of the company more than anything. So that's what people need to understand when it comes to a clone gun or a new gun out compared to what's already out there. You know what the reliability is. If that gun does break, that they will honor the Glock lifetime of that Glock and fix it with no problem. The problem with Palmetto State was nobody knew how long those guns would last and if Palmetto State would fix them if they broke. So that's why people were paying more for a Glock than they would a dagger, because you just didn't know.
What is your sidearm for duty? What's your duty gun?
We carry Glock 17 MOSs.
And is it up to your discretion, or that's the standard? You carry the standard issue. Could you change it if you wanted?
They can't change it, but I've outfitted all of them with flashlights and red dots. So
If
they
you,
all come with flashlight and a red dot on it.
if you could choose if price was no option and you could make a pistol standard issue for your department, what would it be?
I would probably go with the Staccato 2011, Staccato P 2011.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a 1911 double stack basically.
Okay. You do like
I
those
would
19-
really, I would really go with something else, but I thought you knew what a Staccato was. But
No.
I would go with some type of 2011 double stack 1911 style pistol is what I would do. And there's some out there that's like $6,000 a piece, and I would probably go with that one.
What is it about the 1911 platform that you like that much?
just
They're harder.
reliable.
They're harder to strip. They jam easier.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No.
No. So the issue, the only issue that 1911s have now is that Glock came out with a gun you don't have to oil. You have to keep 1911s oiled. And that's the problem that people are having is with it takes more maintenance. Actually, it doesn't. It shoots just as good as a Glock. You can put it in the mud, you can put it in water, it'll still shoot. You just have to keep them oiled. That's the only thing. And when you're talking about metal on metal compared to polymer on metal, you just have more reliability.
J-Hub, you got any thoughts on guns? I don't hear him.
No, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I just got a little 9mm, a couple shotguns, and
What kind of got the 9mm? The SCCY? The Sky.
Mhm.
You got a Sky 9mm?
He's got a high point.
I got a Glock, and the dude, somebody convinced me to get a Koenig. Somebody convinced me to
Koenigs,
get a
yeah.
Koenig.
Oh,
But
a
they
Koenig
don't
or a
like
con, like KAHN.
CANIK.
No, it's a CAN.
And it's a pretty good gun, but I don't I'm left-handed, and it's hard to find like what do you call it? Like,
One that ejects the right direction.
Yeah, ambidextrous safety.
yeah, like not the safety
I mean,
and
mag release.
the holster.
Mag release.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah,
holster. Yep.
Yeah, they don't sell like aftermarket holsters for them a lot. That's the only problem.
What's a gun that what's a common gun that you see that you think is one that you would definitely recommend against?
The Taurus. See, a lot of people are buying that Taurus. Dang it, what is it? The Taurus.
I used to have a Judge. You're not talking about the Judge, are you?
No, it's the Striker Fire Taurus. They came out C3, CP3 or something like that. Dang, what is that? It's a Taurus because I bought one to review on my channel, and it's a piece of crap. It is literally a piece. It's not even as bad. It's worse than the Sky. And truthfully speaking, High Point has a bad name. The reason why High Point has a bad name is because a lot of people have bought the High Point being a cheap gun, a cheap throwaway gun, and I would say 90% of the High Points that I got off the streets had different caliber bullets in it in the magazine, and that's why it jams, because they don't put the right ammunition in it.
It's just regular 9mm, isn't it? I mean, like they're not in weird Russian caliber chambered anything, are they?
No, you can get a 45 or a 9, but I saw some with the 10mm, 9mm, 40. I mean, like different calibers in there, and I'm like, how did this gun even shoot?
Right.
I mean, it's.
Some of the guns that I've seen, and I'm sure that you see the same shit. Some of the guns I've seen, like on the street, are just people get the weirdest fucking off-brand of guns, and they've got all sorts of shit jammed in there, and so some of the bullets will already have weird striker dents on. It's a mess.
Oh yeah. It's crazy, man.
Huh? So if you were me and you're looking at getting your felony expunged, what's the first gun you buy? Money is an option or an obstacle.
Money is
I can't order that stucco or the.
uh listen, you said the dagger, man. You was interested in the dagger. I would get the
I'm
dagger,
interested in
man.
that.
If you know how to break down a gun,
Mhm.
the dagger is a very, very good gun. I don't like the grip on it because it's so fat. I don't like the grip on it. It's a little bit different from the Glock. But it's a very good gun, man. For the price that you're getting, you can get a dagger that's red dot ready, MOS ready. It's got a full barrel, full rail on it, for $350, and it's got a threaded barrel. You can get it for $350 from the Palmetto State.
I used to make custom ARs, well, both for myself and as I started doing it as sort of a side hustle to, I guess, feed my own gun hobby.
Right.
And so yeah, I like it. I like things that are customized that you can tinker with. By the time that I got rated back in the day, I forfeit. I had ARs that had gold plated lower parts and like my shit was nice.
Right.
But yeah,
Do y'all have any long range guns? Like I got a 301
Yeah.
mag too. That's
Okay.
one of my favorites.
300
Yeah,
win mag.
I got a couple 6.5 Creedmoors, 308s.
Do you have a
you know,
Desert Eagle 50?
Hell no. Hell. That gun is not fun to shoot, man. That gun is not
It's
fun to
not.
shoot, man.
It's not. I had one, and once I've shot it, and my friends have shot it, then it's just I ended up trading it for a Heckler and Koch 45 tactical and OD green. They only made 1,000 of them, and I had 2 of them.
Jesus. That's
Yeah,
a nice gun.
is that? Yeah, I'm pretty salty about losing those, but I'm happy about getting 15 years of my life back.
Right. And like I said, man, guns are just they're just amazing how they work. You know what I'm saying? That little small thing can make that big of an explosion. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just amazing how they work.
And they're a good store of value as well.
Yes.
Like they inflate slower than cash does. So what about binary triggers? I've never shot a binary trigger. Is it cool? Because what do you think? They good? I thought bump stocks I thought bump stocks were stupid. I didn't get the fucking bump stock. I've tried them. I didn't get it.
Bump stocks are dumb. Binary triggers are a very good tool to have, but I don't. So a lot of people don't understand. Fully automatic weapons are not the way to go. Like a lot of people want to go full auto, but you just can't keep a target in sights if you're full auto. Full auto is for suppression fire. It's not for defensive fire, right? So binary triggers are fun. Don't get me wrong. They are a lot of fun, but I don't feel a use of them. Like there's no good use for a binary trigger. Semi-automatic is the best way to go when it comes to defensive.
Yeah, I agree. And people don't realize like how much faster rounds go when adrenaline is pumping.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh man, yeah. I mean, you can make something sound fully automatic just with the semi-automatic rifle, AR-15, like easy.
What? Okay. There's one last thing I wanted to. I don't know how long you've got, but I've got one last question I want to pop off at you before I can let people back up if they're so inclined. But how do you deal with? So I've made the argument on my channel before that there is no such thing as a good cop, because if you enforce laws you do not agree with, you're acting violently then against the person, against your own moral judgment. Basically, you're a moral prostitute if you enforce laws that you don't agree with. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, but you abide by laws you don't agree with also. So I don't think that makes a bad cop. I think that's just a cop doing his job, right? Just because I don't agree with them doesn't mean that they're not the law. So I take this same argument. A lot of people don't like when I take this argument. If you live in my house, there are a certain amount of laws, and I call them my laws because it's my castle. It's what I want, how I want things done, right? If you live in my house, you have to abide by a certain amount of laws. Just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean they're not the law of the land, right? So at the end of the day, just because there is a law that you don't agree with or that I don't agree with, it's still a law that has to be enforced, right? It's
So
still a law
you,
that you have to abide by.
but you feel like for you as an individual, you're okay with enforcing laws, even if you think they're bad. Like we all know that there's such thing as bad laws, right?
Right.
You be okay enforcing those since it is the law and it's your job.
It depends on what the law is, right? If I enforce it or not, because there was a time where I was contacted, and I'm not going to put any names out there. I was contacted by an entity that wanted to enforce certain gun laws that I just did not agree with, and we just said no, we're not going to do it because it didn't hurt anybody. Now, when it comes to a speeding law, right, or something like that, I enforce it. I don't really enforce seatbelt laws because I think that's one of those things that hey, you're able to make that decision. There are a lot of laws that we have our discretion on as law enforcement. So, but there are a lot of laws that we don't have a discretion on, like domestic violence laws. There are some situations that we just don't have a discretion on, and we have to leave it up to courts to make that decision. So, when it comes down to it, I get what you're saying when it comes down to cop enforcing a law that he doesn't agree with. But most cops don't enforce laws that they don't agree with because it's up to them. Only laws that we enforce that we don't have that we don't agree with are the laws that it's like you shall. It's not you have the discretion. It's you shall enforce.
Do you have discretion? How much discretion do you have when it comes to drug laws? And do you live in are you in a state that's where pot is legal or is weed?
No, it's not legal. They're trying to pass it now for medical use, but they haven't gone through with it yet. I don't think. So I think it will be passed soon. But so this is the thing. When I was in narcotics, our main goal was to be able to get to a bigger picture, right? If it looked like we were stopping, so one of the things that we just really did not enforce is somebody on disability or somebody on some kind of fixed income selling their medication. It doesn't go anywhere. That's one of those things those investigations that really did not go anywhere. We didn't get to the bigger picture. We left that to the road officers. If they were to come across it, they can do whatever they did. We didn't enforce a lot of marijuana either. It came to because I worked with Homeland Security. I was a task force officer with Homeland Security. So when it came down to it, we had to have some kind of nexus to some kind of border crossing when it came to that narcotic, right? So that's why we only focused on the drugs that we knew there was some kind of bigger entity funneling that narcotic into the United States, right? And that's my belief. I really don't like putting somebody that's retired on a fixed income in jail because they're trying to get extra money on, their prescription drug or something like that. That really doesn't sit right with me, right? Because they're trying to get more money. So there was a little bit of discretion on what we did and how we enforced it, but we just had to have a good reasoning on why we didn't do certain things, right? Now, if that senior citizen was out here, balling it up because they got so many, then it would probably be a problem. But as far as like just supplementing your income, that was one of the things we really did not want to enforce. And what I mean by balling it up is constant traffic in and out of the house, problems created because of that traffic, stuff like that.
How many drug dealers did you encounter where there was a clean distinction that between the drug user and the drug dealer? A drug dealer that wasn't also a user or that wasn't, man.
That's I don't know, because when you start off an investigation, that's who you deal with. The ones that are the users. It's usually the one that's trying to get a deal and get extra money so they can buy for themselves, right? So that's usually where the investigation started.
Well, and you tell me if you think this is wrong, because I've also made the claim that I don't think that there is such thing as a drug. I think that the drug dealer, as Scarface or American Gangster, I think that image is make believe. In reality, the way that the drug market works is through networking, and everybody basically, I mean, aside from international people, everybody involved in drugs is a user who is just in part of. They got caught in part of the network.
Um,
I don't think
I
that
would
there's any
say
ballin' drug dealer who's just exploiting the community and didn't come in through the addiction themselves.
no. Well, okay, so I have a different um involvement because mainly the ones I went federal with were that type of person, and I would say I probably was involved in maybe 30 to 40 federal prosecutions of somebody that was funneling drugs into the neighborhoods, right? But they were not a user, right? I've dealt with a lot of people that did not use, but they were the facilitator of getting those drugs into the streets, right?
And by
So
facilitator, you mean the trafficker, or you mean they were somewhere um, involved in?
no, they actually would send people to go get drugs and bring it back. They would actually talk to the cartels and getting the drugs into the United States, those kind of things, right?
Mhm.
Now, as far as the Scarface level, they ain't living in mansions.
Right.
They aren't, it's not the lifestyle of Scarface, but it is like the title of what Scarface had, right? To an effect on a very smaller kind of scale. So I would say majority of the people that are involved in selling the drugs, yes, they are somewhat used, involved some that kind of way, yes, but there is a minority of them that did not touch drugs. They just wanted the money from it, and they exploited it.
And how long do you think that anybody retires from that lifestyle?
Oh yeah,
You think people?
yeah.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
I mean, it seems like the retirement plan for anybody who's drug dealing is you either die or you go to prison,
Yes,
or you get stung like me. You get stung by it and then go, nope, okay, that's good.
right. So I have seen it to where there were some people that was on our list. We just could not get enough to. They were so smart. We just could not get enough to do anything with them. And by the time I got out of narcotics, they were totally out of it. Had 3 or 4 businesses, but you know for a fact where the money came from for those businesses, right? And they were just out of it, right? So I think that's a retirement plan for a drug dealer. I think the concept comes where you either die or go to jail are the ones that the foot soldiers that's on the streets doing the drug dealing, right? I think that's where that concept comes from, and that's ultimately what the demise is of most of those ones that are on the streets is they either end up dead or in jail.
What do you think about presumptive intent? You probably don't have an issue with presuming intent at a certain quantity.
Okay, so you got to tell me what presumptive intent is because
Presumptive intent to distribute.
Conspiracy?
No, like for instance, like my conviction is for presumptive possession with intent to distribute.
Right.
How do you feel about those laws? I assume that you're all right with them. The presumptive intent part. I have
Well,
an issue
yeah,
with
because
the
it goes based on what quantity you have and does that quantity fit a personal use, right? So I think yes, somebody that has 4 kilos of coke, presuming you're trying to sell that shit, like that's not a personal use, right?
Yeah, but the brackets start way lower than that.
No. I get that.
Yeah,
because you could have 8 crack rocks, and that's PWISD, possession with the intent to sell and deliver, right?
Do you think that those laws are set at exploitative levels?
You're talking to somebody that's biased. So
I know.
no.
I'm biased too. We're both biased.
So no, I wouldn't say it because somebody walking around with 8 crack rocks that's not personal use. 8 individually bagged crack rocks, also that's not personal use. Like, come on, man.
Right. If they're individually bagged, that's a different thing. But
right. So
in my state, what is it? I believe an 8 ball of crack is presumptive intent. So 3.5 grams. That's not very much.
No, that's not.
You could smoke that in a day.
Yeah, you could. And I don't know, man. I really think it's one of those situations where I don't think you should. If you're concerned about that, I don't think you should be dealing with it. Right?
I'm just wondering your opinion on things.
Yes.
What about DUI limits? Do you think I heard those are getting even lower? Do you think that those are too low? 0.08, I don't think I'm drunk at that.
Oh, bro. For me, when I went through the class, I was at a 0.05 and I knew I shouldn't have been driving.
Really?
Like, yeah, man. Like, because we actually had to drink to see our levels, to see where we felt at. That's what made you understand what level somebody had to be drunk, right?
Okay.
0.05, I was at 0.05, and bro, my head was spinning. And I'm not a big drinker. So,
and I've never actually measured my BAC or anything like that. So I don't actually know what a 0.08 feels like for sure. It's not calibrated.
Right. So I'm at 250 pounds at a 0.05 feeling like this. I can imagine with somebody at 190 pounds at a point, you got people driving at 0.22.
Right. Yeah, that's a problem for sure.
So I get it. I get exactly where that 0.08 comes from. I think that from the way I felt at 0.05, me at a 0.08, I need to go to jail. Right? I need to, because that's just crazy. And I think the 0.08 comes to really negate somebody that's, has a tolerance for alcohol compared to somebody that doesn't have a tolerance for alcohol.
Do you have civil asset forfeiture? Well, everywhere has civil asset forfeiture, I believe. What do you think of civil asset forfeiture?
So I've always come up with the concept: if you play the game, you got to pay the realtor, right? So you got to pay the host. So I think that comes.
You got to pay the host.
So I think that comes with it, man. Just like I tell dope boys all the time, bro, you knew what you were doing, man. Why ain't you got a lawyer? I mean, it comes with the territory. It's part of the game. Right? So, hey, listen, it is what it is.
But I'm not even talking about people who are involved in crime. I'm talking about little lady driving down the street with $5,000 in her pocket because she's going to buy a car or some shit.
No, that's a little different because there was one when I was working in narcotics, we caught a guy on the highway with $28,000 in his dashboard, but he could prove that he was going through a divorce, so we let him keep his money.
Why should anybody have to prove that they are allowed to have the money that they have?
Because of cartels and drug running.
So if he wasn't, how was he able to prove that?
He just showed us that he was going through a divorce.
And
he didn't.
If he had not, now in that situation, one, he was prepared for it, so he could show that, right?
No. We actually initially took the money. He just came back with his lawyer.
He went to court for it. Well,
No, he didn't go to court.
He came back to the police department and showed you stuff, and you guys released it to him?
Yeah, basically, yes. Before we could forward up to the U.S. Attorney's office, he came to us. We talked to the U.S. Attorney's office, told them what was going on. They said, "Okay, give it back to him."
What are the restrictions on those sort of seizures? Is there any?
The restriction is if it's $9,000 and $9,999 or less, then you can't seize it.
$10,000 is the limit, basically.
$10,000 is the limit, yes.
What about like a vehicle? Could you take somebody's vehicle and say this was? If somebody's just driving down the road, you pull them over for taillight or whatever. Tint looks too dark. Is there
No,
anything on the books stopping a cop from saying, this car was acquired with drug money, I'm taking it, you prove it wasn't?
no. That has to go through the courts.
So the only thing that cops can just decide, this is sus, I'm taking it, is cash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now they can seize, and the thing about it is on a seizure, we're not essentially taking it. We can only keep that money, that vehicle, or anything like that after a court decides that we can. We can't just say it's ours because it was used for drugs.
Well, I mean,
Only time
functionally to the victim, functionally, it is the same thing, right? It's just a declaration that they are being relieved of it, right?
right, but there's still a potential of you getting it back, is what I'm saying. So
And then
as long as there's some potential of you getting it back, it's not taking, it's just a seizure. And I get it. I wouldn't want my money taken just because it's $10,000. You know what I'm saying? Like I get that.
But after it goes to, let's say it goes to court, and it's not contested because I don't know, it was all the money that person had, and now they can't afford an attorney. Do you know how the money is distributed? Then is it split between the feds and the seizing agency?
Yes.
And you don't feel like that incentivizes cops to act as criminals?
Okay, so now your wordage is kind of triggering to me. So let's let's use some different wordage when we're talking about that.
This has to be entertaining after all. Okay, what wording would you prefer to use?
I think it is incentivizing officers to seize money. Yes. But as far as acting as criminals, I don't agree with that.
Why?
I don't agree with that. Because even though it is your right, the normal citizen doesn't ride around with $10,000 in a hidden compartment.
Do you think that there aren't cops who are criminals as well?
Oh, undoubtedly. Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. Listen, bro, you'll find a crooked cop that is a interdiction officer faster than you would a patrol officer.
What's interdiction?
Interdiction is on the highways, finding the drugs and the money. That same thing that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those cops have big ass houses, and they're just, come on, man. on the paperwork it says they seized 500,000. Just imagine what could have been there. Like, come on, man.
Oh, I know. When I got,
and they're by themselves. When they initially see the money, they're by themselves.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, yeah.
When I got raided, none of my cash ended up on the evidence list. No surprise.
See that?
I mean, I wasn't surprised at all. And you know
what the sad thing about it is, Flo, is the fact that there's nothing in me that says that didn't happen, right? Like you're telling me that, and it's like, fuck. It's like it feels bad to not be able to say, nah, that couldn't happen.
I get I get it, but here's the other thing is like I can't say that if I were on the other side of my raid, if I were a cop in the situation that they were when they came in my house, that I wouldn't do the exact same thing. I probably would, and so that's why I sort of think that. I mean, if that money's getting seized, because they blow toward. It was in gun safes, right? I had safes where I kept all everything that you. Extra cash for rainy day, guns, of course, birth certificate, all that shit. Everything was just scooped. Every single thing was taken out of all the safes. The cash didn't end up on the evidence list. Now, if I'm a cop and I'm doing this raid and I've got it in my head that this guy's a douchebag, he's a drug dealer, and he's not getting this money anyways now, I don't see why I wouldn't put it in my pocket. If I'm being honest, but I guess my point is that I think that there's the systems in place are really what needs to be addressed. If you've got somebody who's working, whatever cops make, a middle class income, and they're looking down the barrel, I didn't even have that much money, but if you're looking down the barrel of $100,000 that is getting taken from this guy anyways, are you really going to throw it into evidence? Maybe your kid needs braces, So I think that the way to solve this isn't to hope that we get the most moral people on earth in these positions. It's to address the position itself.
Bro, if you're not getting paid enough, you need to find a different career. Like you knew what it was when it came. I can't get down with that statement because at the end of the day, cops know what they're making. They know what the job is and they know what they're making. So for you to say that, oh, my kid needs braces, so I'm gonna steal $20,000. Come on, man. Put yourself in a better situation to where you don't have to do that.
In a perfect world, but I'm also a realist, and I don't think that we can expect that sort of purity out of people realistically.
I don't expect it. What I'm saying is that that's my rhetoric. That's why I don't feel sorry for any cop that gets caught because you knew what the job was when you took it. These jobs don't pay that much.
Have
right?
you ever? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to finish. Go ahead.
Well, I was about the next question is kind of a bounce in a little bit of a different direction. So if you've got any more thoughts on that, then go ahead.
I'm good.
All right. Have you ever arrested another cop?
Yes.
All right. That's
three
all.
Of them.
3 of them.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. I think that's about all my questions. I appreciate you stopping by and
oh yeah, no,
putting up with me and my sort of anti-copish crew.
Listen.
Do you have any?
Go ahead.
Before I'm gonna drop the link again and let people have a chance to come up. Do you have anything that you think that you want to tell me or that I should know or we should know kind of about the whole gig? Or any questions I haven't asked that you think should be asked? About cops, law enforcement, drugs, anything.
No, it's not anything that I would like. I feel like you need to know or anything like that. But I think the problem that I mainly have with people is that they put cops at a higher pedestal when these people are the least educated, right? And the most, like, our jobs take so much brain work. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're the least educated, and if law enforcement, if there could be so many things that's taken off of law enforcement, like we have to be somebody's counselor, somebody's child care, outside of like, come on, man, it's
dude, I could, yeah.
The state of law enforcement. It's not the fact that we just want people to have sympathy for us, but just understand our job.
I absolutely get that. That's another reason I couldn't do it. It's got to take a lot of patience.
Right.
All right.
I got about 20 more minutes, bro.
Sure. I think I got all. You answered all my questions. I'm gonna drop the link for whoever wants to come up. And I appreciate you stopping by. And
oh yeah,
it's been a good conversation. Been very interesting.
Yes,